my name is Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to the introductory episode of How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast, featuring two guys getting drunk and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And this week we're going to be drinking Guinness Draft, which
A little bubbly.
it is a beer.
I
I recognize the taste as a beer. I want to say maybe a stout.
I've identified this as a beer. It is definitely, we decided to start
It's
on
a pasteurized
literally
stout,
the heaviest thing in the refrigerator.
Yes.
So it's good stuff.
As I'm drinking it now, I'm remembering that they actually use like fish bladders or something to create this. So
It tastes good.
just want to make sure I tell you that after you've opened it and
Thank you.
had a few sips.
Delicious. Love those fish bladders.
They're great. So basically, we kind of want this to be our sort of like pilot episode where we're going to pitch the idea for this podcast that we're going to be doing for the next couple weeks, hopefully, maybe months, years, the rest of our lives till we die.
Well, it's quite a commitment. But really, what this is all about, in case you're wondering, is it's just going to be Mike and I drinking beers and talking about movies, which is really, it's not that far off from our every other interaction. It's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
what
that's
we do.
pretty much what we've been doing anyway as friends, is just drinking too much and talking too much about movies.
Yeah. So where do we go from? I mean, it's been scripted up until here. Now we're just flying without a parachute.
Without a paddle.
We're flying without a paddle. So let me take you back to the beginning.
That's a
Where
good
it
place
all
to start.
started.
Two young boys.
Two young boys
William Patterson,
on a college
University,
campus.
Patterson, New Jersey.
We first actually met in... We were trying to decide on what this word was the other day. It wasn't college initiation.
Orientation.
Orientation.
I don't know what we couldn't think
Everyone kept saying initiation, and that's like something frat boys do.
of. Which we did not do.
They all get in a line and kiss each other. It's like, welcome to the frat.
You gotta kiss me.
Gotta kiss me.
I mean, I'm not
if you wanna
saying we didn't kiss.
No,
but
yeah,
no
it
one
was-
forced us to kiss.
be. Yeah. But we met. We're roommates. Roommates lived together, on and off boyfriends for.
Joe, my mom might be listening to this.
Well, she's gotta know.
It's over now, Mom. We all experimented in college.
Some weird times, but out of 4 out of 5 of the years, just because the first year I was auto assigned to Woojin. Yeah,
I was with my brother.
yeah. But I mean, really, met in college, hit it off real quick. Obviously, a huge connection that keeps us together is this sort of
Love of film.
yeah.
Which I feel like we have like a similar history in terms of like how we got into film. Like I know we had talked about how we both got together on like the digital blue age back in the day. Like your parents buying you the digital blue and just making like dumb movies with all like the explosion special effects and the UFOs and the lasers and stuff. And like, which really, I mean, it taught me appreciation of film. I feel like back then in terms of, what goes into making a film.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
even just like the dumbass movies that we made when I was in like 5th grade. Like a lot of time and effort went into those.
Yeah, and really from there, I mean, I think we both went into college with completely different majors, and I think we talked about film so much that we both kind of drove more directly into that sort of writing film.
Yeah, I mean, I started as a music major. I think you started as an art major.
I
did
did.
not.
No. That's
And
wrong.
then I switched to an English major with not technically a minor, but I kept taking film classes to fill some of my like gen ed requirements, or whenever I could, like my writing requirements, like
Right.
screenwriting and stuff like that. And I think we took a few classes for film together too. I think
We did.
there was the one class that I just kept falling asleep in.
Which one is that?
The film as a medium.
Oh, yeah.
Kenneth
Yeah.
Katowski. Shout out.
Wow. That is... I don't even...
I just kept falling asleep because it was in the theater with the really comfy chairs, and they would turn the lights off, and the class was literally right after our dinner period.
Right.
So we would go to the dining hall, stuff our faces with food, and then go watch a movie, and I would just slip into a food coma by the second act.
It was like 7... The class started at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
essentially, so it was prime sleeping time. But no, I mean, we learned a lot in our film classes. I mean, that one especially, there was this sort of film analysis on a certain level. I think we were more interested in more the screenwriting and other classes. But
I mean, we followed. I think we followed the Oscars pretty heavily in college too, and obviously now. I remember watching. I can't remember whose dorm it was in Madelson. Watching the Oscars that one year, the year that the wrestler didn't win. What won that year? Oh, Slumdog Millionaire won that year.
Oh yeah. That was that really that I feel like that year really kicked it off.
Yeah, I think that was probably, and I think a big part of that was that year. Our friend, who shall remain unnamed, was heavily into illegally downloading movies, and he got us pretty much every movie that was nominated for an Oscar that year. And I think that was one of the first years that I saw literally every movie that was nominated.
Yeah.
So I could have like a really educated opinion when I was watching the awards, rather than being like, oh, I don't know that movie, so it sucks.
And that's become a habit, really. We strive. I mean, it doesn't happen every year, but we strive to watch every single Best Picture nomination.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I've missed like one or two. I'm not really sure.
Last year I saw everything. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously that moved into us saying, hey, why don't we actually make our own movie instead of watching other people's movies. And we worked together on a film called Less Than Three, which Joe co-wrote and he co-directed and he starred in. He's a cute boy.
And Michael, it literally would have not been made without Mike, because myself and everyone else involved in the film was sort of lazy, and Mike is the very take charge sort of. He produced and he had a small role, and it's something music you wrote was in it, and you were really even there on the editing floor.
Well, we all were actually. Yeah. I remember having. It's not this table. It was the table at Bloomfield when we lived there, and we literally moved it in front of the TV in the living room. Had like all the computers hooked up to the TV. And it was just all four of us in the room.
Deciding on cuts. I think there was one point where you and the other co-director, Nick, were trying to show me a cut, and I got very frustrated because I'd been editing this for like 2 weeks before, and then they were showing me a cut that, I don't know. It was stupid, but like, it was just, I was at the end of my rope, and I was like, yeah, looks good. I'm going to take a shower. And I walked away and like slammed the bathroom door. And like I just heard like silence for a while.
I don't know if I remember that. I can imagine that being very awkward though.
It was, because I feel like I'm a hard one to get angry. I'm a hard one to get angry.
This boy is hard to get hard.
Hot to trot, hard to get hard.
But I mean, despite the arguments that we had on the cutting room floor, Less Than Three went on to be an official selection at the Bergenfield Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
Where it was screened to an audience of 5.
Including, like...
us.
Yeah, it was us, the lead actress who was abroad somewhere. Yeah. But it was, like, her mom and her aunt who was like, oh, well, our daughter is making out with... these two gentlemen.
For those who haven't seen it, Less Than Three is about this actress who happens to be dating the co-directors of the movie she's starring in at the same time, and they all know it. And there's a lot of hot, steamy sexual scenes revolving around that tripod of a relationship that
I don't know if it's hot, steamy.
It's not hot or steamy.
Some light kissing.
It's funny, but it's just not something you want your mom to see.
Oh no, definitely. It's not something that I want the mom sitting behind me when I'm the director and being like, I made your daughter do this.
Now we kiss. This is film, sweetheart.
Get in or get out. This is Hollywood. It's how it works. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Off to a start.
So that was Less Than Three, which was really just kind of our actual experience with film.
Right.
That took us from, being observers of film to actually being participants.
We were creators.
And we did. We created something that 5 people saw. It didn't win anything at that festival, and I remember I don't know what film did win that year.
It was like
the guy who accepted for that film literally got up and like named everyone that was in like the judging panel, like as if they were like his best friends.
His close
like,
friends.
Oh, thanks, Katie, for this.
Yeah, right. No,
and I'll see you next week for dinner.
Exactly. And he was also. It was like The Treasure or something, and it had been made in like the 90s or something. It was like made a long time ago.
Resubmitted or something.
When it was like, what? Like, we just made this film this year. Like, it seems appropriate. And it was also... the creators of the film fest, not only did they know him, but they were so starstruck by his like presence. They're like, we think he's off working on an episode of Boardwalk Empire, everybody. And like, we're all like, oh, cool. And then obviously they gave the award to him. But yeah,
we were robbed.
I don't think
we were robbed.
I don't even know what they thought of our film.
I don't know what anyone thought. I don't even know what I think of that film at this point, looking back. But I guess all of this is kind of to say that while we may just be two guys who are drinking beer and talking about movies, we're also not just two guys who are drinking beer and talking about movies.
That makes sense. I like that.
I mean,
yeah.
You see what I did is I said something and then I said it again.
Right.
Differently.
But
it's got a different meaning. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, the coda coming back. It's different this time, though.
But is it though? I feel like you just kind of switch some words around.
Listen, we're just trying to save paper on the sheet music,
Why don't you play that measure like 13 more times?
I mean, I feel like kind of the reason we wanted to start this podcast is like there's things that we can get across and express in this format that you might not read in like a written review, especially in like the New York Times or something like that. But
right, and I believe we're just a little more qualified than. I mean, I don't want to brag, but we're a little more qualified. We did take courses in film. We did study film, and we're not just two frat brothers talking about how awesome Boondock Saints was. There's a lot of people. There
are other movies besides the Boondock Saints and the Quentin Tarantino library.
Yeah, even in film school, there was people like that. I think we were literally
like every class was just
the student body was obsessed with Boondock Saints.
They loved it
as a collective. I still don't really understand. I think everybody was also trying to make like Martin Scorsese's like Taxi Driver, and like we were like, oh, we're gonna try
Zombies. Zombies was huge when we were in college.
Definitely,
still is now.
Mm-hmm. So that's really our whole background of it's. I mean, I think in a nutshell, before we move on to like what this podcast is actually about, is I think film is an important part of me and Mike's relationship. Mm-hmm. Hi, Mike's mom.
Go on.
And it is.
I was listening to your podcast. I have a few questions.
It's before you answer me, it's okay.
I'll love you no matter what.
Society has come a long way since I've been living. But I do think film is an important part of me and Mike's relationship as friends. And I think, is something that it's just an open discussion that's going on. And we figured we might as well, really...
just organize it.
Right,
make some use of these drunk conversations that we have about the movies we've mutually seen.
Right, and we waited until we were in two different states to start doing a podcast together.
An hour and a half away.
Where we had to be in the same room together.
Working full-time jobs.
Right, yeah, so it has proven pretty difficult, but we're going to see how it goes.
So if we do succeed, this is what you can expect.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think we're going to try and probably keep these to half an hour just so you can, listen on your way to work or whatever you're doing.
Right. And
without really imposing on your life with our drunk conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't
Plus, we might pass out after.
I don't think anybody wants to listen to us drunk for more than a certain amount of time.
Yeah, let's just give up.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
We're just going to turn this off and pretend this never happened.
We can return the beer, right?
It's almost done, but it's... So... I mean, yeah, with the exception of the in addition to the is George already getting there?
You can expect more of this on the podcast. This is kind of the point.
Do you want to hear me fumble with the same three words for
You're gonna want to keep your dictionaries and thesauruses handy because we might not know what we're talking about.
But I mean, within that half an hour, we're going to be drinking beers.
Most importantly.
Getting girls. No,
wait. Girls?
No, they're not here. They're not coming.
Damn it.
They just sent a text. They're not coming.
Sorry, Mom. It's just me and Joe tonight.
And so we're going to be drinking beer, talking about a movie, and then, really not only talking about the movie itself, but talking about the experience of seeing that movie.
Yeah,
and
there's always a story about how you saw that movie. And
definitely.
The mindset you were in, the context, and what you were accused of while you were seeing the movie, which we'll get into in a later episode.
And then this is where the lengthiest podcast title that you probably have on your iPhone right now. I'm just going to read it all out so you'll know. How many fingers am I holding up? That plays into our rating scale of we'll usually just rate anywhere from 1 to 5 fingers.
Well, I guess 0.
Well, yeah,
0 to 5
5
fingers.
fingers.
Just a fist.
And then that's also in reference to, like, how many fingers am I holding up?
You get it?
We're
It's a joke. Like, we're drunk.
You know what? I initially disliked this name as well. But I was like, Mike, this is a trope generally reserved for head injuries. But I think you'll also come around to liking it because I'm starting to like it too.
I hope you do.
And pretend like it has something to do with drinking. But
Yeah, is that something? I'm realizing now that no one really does that when you're drinking. Joe, are you drunk? How many fingers am I holding up?
Sir, do you know why I pulled you over? How many fingers am I holding up?
Well, he failed the fingers test, so we're booking him.
I need you to walk a straight line and tell me how many fingers am I holding up.
It made sense in my head.
I don't know, 14? Get him out of here.
I still like it. And
Oh no, I love it. And I think it's gonna grow on them too. But yeah, I believe that's everything that we've needed to cover. It's been an intro episode, an introduction.
we set out to do what we expected to do. We drank beers and we talked about ourselves.
Certainly did.
So if you are listening to this, that means that our first episode is also up at the same time because we're going to simultaneously release them. So if you want to hear a review of the latest James Bond installment, Spectra, you can head over to soundcloud.com/howmanyfingerspodcast and check that out as well.
Sounds good.
Sounds real good.
Sounds real good.
So signing off for How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up the podcast?
Yeah.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe, and we're going to work on this outro. So I'm just
It's going to get better. It can only get better from here.
It can only get better, right?